Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, we are honored to welcome a remarkable guest, Jennifer Spoeri. She is the Executive Director of NAPSA. Welcome, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. We've been looking forward to it. Before we get started, though, explain to our viewers and listeners who may not be familiar with NAPSA what NAPSA is.
NAPSA is the National Adult Protective Services Association, and we provide advocacy, networking opportunities, training, technical assistance, and support the field of, I think it's about over 9,500 workers, 2,000 plus supervisors across the United States and in the territories. And we also have a very robust research to practice group that links our researchers to practice. And we're a membership organization.
And that really, to sum it up, you're the Adult Protective Services that helps support adult protective services workers really internationally, because you're in some of the territories as well. So explain to viewers and listeners, because I think a lot of people are familiar with like child protective services and things like that, and some may not know or realize that there's also a very similar service for adults. And I think that's important given, the nature of our show and the work that we do and our viewers. Explain what exactly Adult Protective Services provides.
So you want my elevator speech?
Well, it's a big building, so you got a lot of floors.
I mean, sometimes I'll be wearing a NAPSA shirt and see people say, "What is NAPSA?" And our logo has APS in the middle of it. So I start out with APS workers are some of the hardest working professionals you won't see out there. They need to know a lot about a lot. Sometimes you hear people say they need to know a little about a lot. No, they need to know a lot about a lot. They're touching people's lives, medical, legal, financial, emotional. They support adults' right to live how they want to live, while offering support and protection to reduce or eliminate the risk that is reported to them. That's the layman's way of saying that APS is the statutorily authorized entity under each state and territory's law to conduct civil investigations of reports of abuse, neglect, financial exploitation. I could go on and on.
Oh, and please feel free to. There's no time limit. I think it's an important topic, and I'm from an outsider perspective. We have dealt with adult protective services with the nature of the work that we have done, but it's also not just necessarily somebody being mistreated or abused or exploited. It could be somebody down the street that lives by themselves, and the family may not even be aware that they're having difficulties living independently. So it could also just be for a welfare check. Is that correct? Or
well, it's got to be some risk involved there, but self-neglect, as you're reporting, where you're just unable to help yourself and to care for yourself, is the most often reported form of adult maltreatment to APS. Financial exploitation is a close second, but that self-neglect, it's having APS link the person with services. Because I was thinking about examples of the different forms of maltreatment last night, and there was a woman in my early days in APS in Philadelphia. We went out in the summer, and we walk into her apartment, and there's a Christmas tree on its side in the middle of the living room. And we later found out that she'd had a stroke in December. And then she went to the hospital. She went to rehab. She's discharged home, and she just didn't have any support. This is a third floor walk up. So, it's lots of stairs, things like that. And she was a more seamless case because she accepted the help. She wanted to get into a program that had delivered Meals on Wheels, an aide that would come and help her, and somebody to get that Christmas tree off the floor.
Incredible. Did you want to elaborate any more on the types of adult maltreatment? Or
Sure. It was kind of interesting preparing for this. I was going down memory lane of my 23 years now in adult protective services. I've been with NAPSA almost 5, so 18 solid years. But that example of self-neglect, like I said, it's really the most common. And you said it. Sometimes the family doesn't even know. We're a very transient society now, so a lot of times you're talking to your mom on the phone or even FaceTime. They can just have the wall behind them and you don't see what's going on in the home. So visit your family is the lesson there. But caregiver neglect or neglect is also called in often. And this one, there are malicious caregivers in the world, but more often than not, it's that these caregivers need support and education. Something happens quickly in a family and I know your personal experience, it's hard to know how to be a caregiver if you're from a completely different field. All of a sudden you're in some intimate situations with your loved ones and they're thrust into this caregiving role very quickly and they're simply not equipped for it. So again, it's the linkage to services. So another reason why we're always supporting our friends in allied disciplines, saying those services are the ones that can keep our older adults and disabled adults out of imminent risk. So, I'm just thinking I really want to make the point. It's World Elder Abuse Awareness Day coming soon, but APS does have not jurisdiction, but we do receive reports on people with disabilities 18 years and older. So about a quarter to a third of our reports are on disabled adults, not necessarily older adults.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I'm going to share a real world example with you. We knew a family that ended up having to hire our services because a gentleman in their family, it was their uncle, had no children, no spouse, and he just had an older brother, and that was it, who was kind of bequeathed the responsibility of managing his affairs because the gentleman ended up having a stroke. And it was shortly after his retirement. He was in his mid-60s, still a fairly young man, and he had, semi-paralysis on his left side. So only his right side would work. So he couldn't transfer himself. He couldn't bathe himself, couldn't really do much of anything for himself. And he lived alone. He had hired a home care company similar to like ours. And all of a sudden, he had no money to pay the home care company. And so, unfortunately, just like with us, we have to pay our staff. And so apparently, as the story goes, the company gave the family like a 6-8 week notice, said, hey, look, he's a month and a half, 2 months behind on paying, and we need to get this taken care of. And, of course, we'll continue helping you. And the gentleman refused to pay. And so leading up to that last day, it was like daily contact. Hey, we don't want to leave this man unattended, unsupervised, because he's going to have nobody. He couldn't get out of the house if there was a fire. He couldn't alert authorities if there was an emergency. He couldn't feed himself. Basically all of your activities of daily living. And the family, for whatever reason, didn't take it very seriously or didn't take care of the situation. And so on the final day, the company went there, talked to the gentleman again, even though they had been there every day leading up to this pretty much, and said, we're going to be done at the end of today. We're very concerned about your safety, and we're going to, as responsible, being responsible, we're going to contact Adult Protective Services to make them aware of the situation, because they were terrified. It was, at this point, it's not even about the money at all. It's about what is going to happen to this gentleman once they leave that day at the end of that last shift. And Adult Protective Services stepped in, and then, we started helping him. But it was, there's a situation right there. It's not so much a neglect. It's not he's being mistreated, but you have a gentleman who is completely codependent on others for everything, and he would have been left there on his own. And it's terrifying. So, we're very, proud that company took that step and notified, Adult Protective Services. So there's all kinds of situations in my mind, you're the professional, where Adult Protective Services could be a lifeline and is such a valued, needed resource that I think more people need to be aware of the services that they can offer. It's not just, that person's being abused. There's a lot of facets to the services that you can assist with, correct?
Absolutely. That example right there shows how the adult protective services professionals need to know a lot about a lot, because I'm just thinking we got several cases like that. The person does not want to pay for services or doesn't want to go into a program that has medical assistance estate recovery, where after your death, the state can choose to come and take what is owed out of your, assets on your real estate. And Adult Protective Services goes in there and really tries to connect the older adult with a civil legal service provider that can explain the different programs and caveats to them, because it gets very in the weeds. But Adult Protective Services workers, and it depends on the state, they can put the services in the interim, and it takes time. That's the thing. It's like APS goes in, but sometimes it really takes time to build that rapport and educate the older adult about their situation, their affairs. Let it sink in, because it's hard to come to grips with at times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talking about, statistics and things, Jennifer, what are some of the national stats on reporting of maltreatment to adult protective services?
So there's a National Adult Maltreatment Reporting System that the 2023 report just came out. We're eager to have a more recent one be released. But like I said, about a quarter to a third of our reports are on adults, 18 to 59. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, that, like 3/4 are older adults. About 1.5 million referrals of adult maltreatment were called in 2023. And this is startling because it's vastly underreported. There's several research studies that indicate that 1 in 23 reports of abuse are called in, and that's abuse, neglect, just generic abuse. And 1 in 40 cases of financial exploitation are called in. So if you do the math, that goes up to about 30 million reports. And there's also something called polyvictimization. So we get a report. It's not just about one thing. We can get a report saying, my neighbor, I haven't seen her in a while. She kind of had bruising on her face. I don't know if she's falling or what's going on. But then APS gets in the house and you see that she's not eating well. She's not going to the doctor, and her lights are not on. And that's because her son is paying the bills, or supposed to be paying the bills, and he's not. And so there's self-neglect, there's financial exploitation, there could be, emotional abuse. You just don't know. It's like an onion where you're peeling back the layers when you get into someone's home and into their life. So yeah, the underreporting is frightening, because if they do all get reported, we're going to have to quadruple our staffing. But you just really hope that we as a society start looking at this and preventing it. But another stat I wanted to mention was that, and I mentioned it briefly, but there's only 9,040 full-time adult protective services investigators and intake workers across the country and in the territories, with about 2,200 full-time supervisors. So when you do the math with the reports that are called in, and this is just breaking it down evenly, but it's about 160 reports each of them handle a year, and that's a lot. That's about 3 a week. When you really do the math, can you tell I'm really fired up, because the caseloads must be kept to a minimum so you can do quality work. And there are some programs in our country that, the EAPS caseworkers are handling 40, 50, 60 cases, on a daily basis, just closing them, and they're coming back in, opening them, closing, opening. And it's hard to do quality work when you're getting that level of volume.
Right. Absolutely. What are some of the impacts of adult maltreatment?
That can be, obviously the victim suffers. There's all kinds of mental health, depression, PTSD, depending on the form of maltreatment, anxiety, if it's an ongoing situation, it just can be very anxiety producing if you have somebody that's coming into your house and threatening you if you don't give them their money. They might be threatening you with institutionalization in a nursing home or visiting their grandkids. We're not going to bring the grandkids over. I've heard that several times. That's heartbreaking, because grandparents and their grandkids, that's a unbreakable bond. The re-victimization and the recurrence of maltreatment. There's been a lot of studies on, once somebody is abused, neglected, exploited, they are more likely to have it happen to them again. There's also been some studies on increased mortality. The risk of death increases after abuse, and that it's even inclusive of financial exploitation. And anecdotally, I remember a situation in my days in APS where the niece of our client was the power of attorney, and she exploited this woman horrifically. Thousands of dollars each month taken out. The woman's life savings was, like $40,000 gone. And that was a lot. It took her a lifetime to amass. She was, like a school cafeteria woman, if my memory serving me. And we took care of it and stopped the bleeding. She had that power of attorney revoked with the help of a civil legal service provider. But the woman still passed away about 6 months later. And she really died of heartbreak because that was her only family. She thought she could trust her. And it really ripped her heart out. So the other impacts can be the inability to replenish your assets. These are people on fixed incomes or on public support. And if you take money from them, it's not like, I can just go out and work overtime or get another job that pays better. They're not able to work. They're in retirement. So, and stretched resources and community to the point where people have to go onto medical assistance at times. They're exploited so much that there's lawyers that have to advocate for them to be able to go on medical assistance once they're defrauded. So lots of, I feel like I'm the doom and gloom, but we're bringing awareness.
So, I know it's not all doom and gloom. I'm sure there's been just some very meaningful outcomes from people reaching out to their local APS service and, helping a senior or an adult over the age of 18. Do you have any, feel-good stories as a result that really stick out for you?
Oh, a feel-good story. I mean, there's numerous. I remember one case that was small in the grand scheme of things because the woman was about to get evicted, but she again had a stroke. Kind of feels like everybody's having strokes, but she'd had a stroke and was writing her checks out. Her rent was $600 a month, and she was writing it for $6. So the landlord had called APS. So that was a more simple problem to fix, but she was able to stay in her apartment because we got her a representative payee to manage her Social Security and pay her bills. But she was able to take care of everything else. It was just the finances is the first to go, the prefrontal cortex. So that was a real success story because she was scared to death she was going to end up in a facility, and she had friends in the community and things like that. So
That's very meaningful. I mean, it kept her in her home. Absolutely. For viewers and listeners who are either familiar with Adult Protective Services or just discovering it, and they may have a concern and they're not sure if it's legitimate or worth, quote unquote, reaching out to their local Adult Protective Services, what would you say to them?
I would say to reach out to the Adult Protective Services in your locality because you want to understand, especially the professionals that may or may not report regularly. If you're in a hospital or in a home health situation, you want to have those relationships. I know I had people in hospitals and home care and even law enforcement that would call me and say, Jen, I saw this person. Do you think I should call them in? And I used to say to them, honestly, you need to be aware of your relationship with that person because we have confidentiality. APS is not to divulge the reporter in most instances, for safety purposes, just all of that. But these adults are not dumb. They could figure out, I saw my doctor yesterday and now Adult Protective Services is at my door. Or, my neighbor was over visiting and was telling me they were concerned and now it's like cause and effect. So I would say develop those relationships with Adult Protective Services so you can talk to them about what they can and can't do. And also just learn how to report before it's, your hair's on fire. And learning how you report it. We do have on our website, napsa-now.org. There's it's up in the top right corner, get help in your area. And there is a map of the country that has the number to the state APS organization. And then you can go from there. But it's good to be familiar with it until before you need it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Know it before you need it. So, talking about the foundation of APS, like autonomy and self-determination, walk us through that.
So I always like to tout NAPSA's mission. We are about to have our 37th annual conference. So we have been around for a while, even before that, but we didn't have an annual conference. So NAPSA's mission is really to strengthen the capacity of APS, like I said, at the national, state, and local levels to be able to support adults with disabilities and older adults when there's allegations of abuse, neglect, exploitation. I'm going to read these. The guiding value of APS, this is the foundation, and I hear lots of APS programs across the country have this on their wall in their offices, and it gives you that emotional support you need when things are tough. I mean, there's a high degree of the trauma, compassion fatigue and trauma. These workers are seeing it all the time. So the guiding value of adult protective services is really every action taken by APS must balance the duty to protect the safety of the vulnerable adult with their right to self-determination. And that's the biggie. That's the difference between us and Child Protective Services. Child Protective Services, every person, 18 and under, is deemed to be incapacitated or, not able to make their decisions. They're minors. All of our clients come to us, unless they already have a guardian that's appointed by a court, they have the ability to make decisions about their life. They are their own captain. So the principles of APS are really that adults have the right to be safe. They have the right to retain all their civil and constitutional rights. They have the right to make decisions that don't conform with societal norms as long as these decisions do not harm others. And they have the right to accept or refuse services. And that's the dance that APS workers do all the time because they're going into situations where there's some support really needed. And sometimes they're making deals. They're compromising. Somebody could use an aid every day. It's like, let's start 2 or 3 days a week. Get to know the person. I know my grandmother didn't want those strangers in the house. Who are these strangers? Then the person becomes their dear friend. And they realize how much it means. And at home care, like and your company does, that home care can keep people in their homes supported for years. And it's just a wonderful thing. So that's the foundation, is really that we're there. The adult is the person that we are charged to serve, not the landlord calling in saying, she's not paying her rent, not the family member who wants to move into their house and get them into a nursing home. It's the older adult or the disabled adult in charge of their life. So, but if there's risk present, we're trying to talk them into it. We are masters of the deal.
Yes. And, we're going to have all the contact information in our show notes as well as up on the screen, Jennifer. But, as we're, talking, there's something called WEAD, WEAAD. What is that?
That is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And it began in 2006 at the United Nations. And each year on June 15th, we bring awareness to the mistreatment of older adults. And it is a global call to action. And it's really to promote the dignity, safety, and respect, to encourage people to identify, prevent, and report elder abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. So there are activities that go on all across the world, literally the whole world. I've seen people where rivers are turned, how Chicago turns their river green on St. Patrick's Day? There are some communities I've seen, they turn it purple because purple is our color. And there's been floating ducks down rivers that are purple, or pinwheels. Philadelphia, the skyline, there's a electric building that has lights around it. We turned them purple and there's no excuse for elder abuse going around the building with the words. So it's really to increase the awareness, and it's education. So we are hosting 2 events at NAPSA, and our regional rep advisory group, I love that event because they're really talking about success stories. So if you want some more success stories, that's going to be on June 11th, and we'll have the exact details posted on our website soon. And the other event is from our Financial Exploitation Committee, Prevention Committee, CAFE, the Committee Against Financial Exploitation. And they're doing the international twist and talking about scams and how they continue to target and really affect vulnerable adults through sophisticated tactics, the technology that's out there, AI. It's scary. Yeah, so they're going to really talk about practical step-by-step guidance for supporting clients who've been impacted by these international scams. So a lot going on in June.
Yes, no, that's wonderful. And, just protecting our seniors and really, like we said, it's people 18 and over from, scams and exploitation is so important. I mean, I got a text message the other day and it looked like a state of Michigan ticket. And I hadn't gotten a ticket, but it said, I'm going to be arrested for failure to pay it. And it looked like an authentic Michigan ticket. And I actually sent it to, my wife. I said, did you get a ticket? Did I get, I actually double checked it because it looks so authentic and it's terrifying, so then you get vulnerable people who are already at risk for, being taken advantage of, they get scared. I know people, here locally that we've helped who they would pay the Microsoft tech guy because they called and said your computer has a virus. And next thing you know, they're paying thousands of dollars to fix it because they're terrified. So the work you guys are doing is just so vitally important, and we're proud to be a part of it and to help share your messaging and services and resources. We have everything in the show notes. And, before we go, I was just hoping if you have a moment, Jennifer, if you could just share your top 5 or however many it is for people listening or viewing to be aware of, or flags or signs to kind of be on the lookout for, to just be cognizant of whether their loved one may be at risk for any of these, situations.
Sure. I could think of a couple different things. I was thinking of one while you were talking because these scams are just coming at you left and right. Text messages to emails to calls. And the grandparent scam particularly gets under my skin because it's just preying on that love that's there, like I said before. And the New York State Attorney General years ago had a public service announcement that was genius but very simple, saying talk to your family. So this is my first tip. Talk to your family. He said, I forget his name, but he said set up a passcode or a key, password with your grandchildren or your children even, just so that if you do get a call saying, Grandma, I'm in jail, I need help, you could say, what's the passcode? And now with AI that can actually create the voice and the likeness of the person, it's really scary, but AI is never going to know that password. So talk to your family, visit your family is my second one, just stay in touch. FaceTime is a great thing, but it's just stay in touch with them because that isolation can be deadly. And we actually are working with the Clowder group that's doing a documentary on heroes of adult protection. And they knew about APS because they did a documentary on social isolation and loneliness and how detrimental it is to all of us. And then they realized that it's a direct link to abuse, neglect, exploitation. So visiting, staying in touch, and just being kind to one another. I could go on and on about so many different things. My brain's going a mile a minute here, but question everything when it comes to financial exploitation and go to the source. Because I just got an email the other day saying your credit card wasn't paid, and I knew I paid it. So I went to my credit card company and they said, no, it was paid. But, that email just wanted me to click on the link, so then they had access. So you have to be so, skeptical.
Question everything.
Yes, question everything.
And Jen, too, Jennifer, if you don't mind, in November, you're having the large NAPSA conference. Did you want to share any of the details about that?
I'd love to. It's November 16th, 17th, 18th in Austin, Texas. So bring your boots and hats. I think there might be line dancing involved. I'm not sure. We're going to learn during the day and then dance at night, apparently. But the Financial Exploitation Summit is that Thursday, November 19th. And this, for the first time this year, on Sunday, November 15th, the Spring Alliance is having a convening, like their annual meeting. And the Spring Alliance is a group of professionals that, a network of regional elder abuse professionals that have different models of elder shelter, but they're going to, we're going to have bookends with the Spring Alliance convening and then the Financial Exploitation Summit. But it's November 15th to 19th, and it'll be nice and cool in Texas at that point.
That's wonderful. And we're excited. We're actually going to be there too, helping to cover the event and talking to all these heroes and, just continuing to help amplify the message of the tremendous work the NAPSA and the workers are doing for our seniors and adults over 18.
Yep, that should be a great time. And the details are on our website, napsa-now.org, along with the help in your area up in the top right corner that I mentioned earlier. So,
well, fantastic. Jennifer Spoeri, thank you so much for joining us and for the work you're doing to help the vulnerable.
thank you. Thank you for having me. This helps immensely.
Our pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Hey, Dad. The pharmacy called. Sounds like you still haven't picked up your heart medication. Are you all right?
Hey, Frank, it's Sally. I got your voicemail earlier. So your nephew asked you for another loan?
Hey, this is your neighbor, Mike. Looks like you're pretty bruised up. Your caregiver said you fell. Is that right?
Yes, this is Julie from the doctor's office. I'm sorry, it seems you missed another appointment today. Are you having trouble getting a ride?
It's on all of us to prevent and address abuse, neglect, self-neglect, and exploitation. Know the signs of abuse and who to contact. Essential community services are available to help. Adult Protective Services is a pillar in our community, ensuring confidentiality and respecting the rights of every adult. Don't let your call go unanswered. Call APS or visit our website to learn more.
Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you again to Jennifer Spoeri for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.